What is up, everybody? My name is Jericholic8704, and I'm here with the third installment of Raw Is Jericholic8704. Let's just dive right into this Raw. We have Raw from May 26, 2003 in Mobile, Alabama. I would like to note that for the first time, I believe this is the first Raw where they do this. After the little signature before, like the Raw theme song would start, they'd show a little silhouette or, just a little picture of Eric Bischoff. Well, this is the first time they showed Bischoff, then Austin, and let the crowd respond so you could see the boo, yay! I always thought that was kind of a funny thing they did in '03. Kind of one of my, favorite parts of 2003 Raw, but whatever. Continuing on, they showed a recap of, Flair's loss from last week. Opening segment, no pyro, just Shawn Michaels music hits. A few things to note, his hair, it's grown out a little bit more, but Shawn Michaels still was rocking the t-shirt tucked into the jeans. I think that's a look he's rocked basically his entire life. He looks a lot better, though, with his hair growing out a little bit more. So HBK says, not about me. He instantly introduces Flair. Flair walks to the ring. HBK starts bowing. JR says each man was the greatest of their respective generations. HBK says he's waited 18 years to tell Flair that he is everything great about wrestling. Flair was every single bit of reason that Shawn Michaels wanted to get into the business and he wanted to wrestle. HBK says he tried everything to reach the level of Ric Flair, and he failed to reach it just because Ric Flair was so great last week that he raised the bar once more. And Shawn Michaels said, after seeing what you did last week, you are still the greatest wrestler. You will always be the greatest wrestler, and you were the greatest wrestler. You're the greatest. So HBK just, completely puts over Ric Flair. Shawn Michaels says he has to know where he stands in terms of, where he stands against, the greatness of Ric Flair. So he challenges Flair to a one-on-one match tonight on Raw. Flair thanks Shawn for, reminding him who he needed to be. Flair says he passed the torch to him and HBK took wrestling to another level. Triple H interrupts. Another thing to note, this was, speaking of hair, this was Triple H's dry hair phase. And I'm not saying it looked bad, but I guess I'm just so used to seeing Triple H with wet hair all the time. I don't know, man. Like dry hair Triple H, his hair was so blonde, and it didn't look right to me. Triple H says that he's the one that got Flair off his ass 6 months ago. Says Flair's back because he took him to the limit. Hunter tells him that Flair better not bite the hand that feeds to him. Flair says HBK is the one who saved him, not Triple H. Triple H then flips the fuck out. He gets so mad and says, don't make an enemy out of me. You know where you came from. Bischoff comes out and says he can throw his weight around just like Stone Cold did. He says that he has three biggest egos in all of wrestling. He's not necessarily wrong on that. And then he says Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair was not worth having in Alabama. Again, not necessarily wrong. So he says Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair will take place at what he calls Eric Bischoff Presents Bad Blood. Him and Austin are kind of doing this little feud thing where they don't know who's presenting Bad Blood. And then he says he makes the main event of Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair versus Triple H in a handicap match. So JR was going nuts. This was a good opening segment. I enjoyed, Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Ric Flair. Can you really go wrong with them? I mean, sure, they can have boring promos, maybe. But, these three in the ring together, they're going to do something good. Everyone played their part well in this. I actually really enjoyed this opening segment. I thought it was really good. Then we had a WWE.com vote. Will Bill Goldberg spear Chris Jericho tonight on the highlight reel? I always feel like with these WWE.com polls, you think you'd ask a more interesting question than a simple yes or no question. We'll get the results on that later tonight. Then we had our first match, Booker T versus Test with Stacy Keibler. But this is when they were doing the little, Steiner Test fight over who gets Stacy Keibler. Booker T started out strong. Test cuts him off with a hot shot. Booker T gets a comeback with some lariats and kicks and suplexes. He goes for the scissors kick, misses, hits a heel kick, and then a spinneroonie. Test goes for a pump handle, hits a missile drop kick for 2. Booker T goes for a baseball slide, and then Test pulls Stacy in the way of the baseball slide, knocking Stacy unconscious. Test, obviously it wasn't like, one of those did he or didn't he. He clearly pulled her in the way. Even King was calling him out on it. And JR was going nuts. He was saying, Test is a horrible excuse for a human being. Test slides back into the ring, hits a pump handle slam for a near fall. Steiner comes out to the ring to check on Stacy and carries her away. Tess gets distracted, gets hit with the scissors kick for the pin. Booker T is your winner. This wasn't that bad of a match, in all honesty. You know, Tess and Booker T, competent wrestlers, they can do something good. 2 1/4. Yeah, I didn't think it was anything too horrible. You know, it was fine. They made a backstage segment with Triple H and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Austin had a black eye for some reason. I have no idea where that came from. Triple H asked what happened to Austin's face. Austin says he slipped on soap while he was singing in the shower. Triple H says Austin has done one hell of a job. He has done a, quote, A1 job as being a GM. Austin says thanks, but the match is still on. Triple H says Austin's new shirt was awesome and they would sell like hotcakes. That's another quote. Austin says thank you, but the match is still on. Triple H asks if Austin is working out, and Austin says no. Austin says thank you, but the match is still on. Triple H says Austin is a piece of trash because he always wanted to beat Triple H. Austin says thanks for stopping by, and Triple H does more cartoonish angry faces. This was awful. I don't know what they were thinking with this backstage segment. Triple H is your world heavyweight champion, and you have him making these like Popeye cartoon faces because he's angry that Stone Cold Steve Austin is not giving him his way. A heel champion can be all like, I don't want to say childish and cowardly, but like, I mean, Seth Rollins is not a good example because Seth Rollins' world title run was really bad, but like, you can make that sort of character work where he's a chicken shit heel, you know, he tries to look for the easy way out, but Triple H was never really presented that way, especially during this time when it was the Triple H reign of terror. Triple H, you know, when they made the handicap match for the main event, Triple H was obviously mad because he had to face 2 people. But if Triple H is as bad as he says he is, he would have no problem beating these 2. Triple H would say, you mean I have to beat these 2 old fucks? Fine, I'll kick both of their asses with both hands tied behind my back. To me, Triple H should have been cocky and more arrogant than ever. Like, they need 50 more partners, and then it might be a fair fight. I mean, Triple H sucking up to Stone Cold Steve Austin, that makes no sense. And I mean, like, Austin, I even felt his reaction to all this was kind of like subdued. Like, Austin, you know, the moment someone's trying to brown nose him, Austin would have whooped their ass. I feel like both of these characters in this particular segment were completely misunderstood. And then, you know, we saw both of these guys later that night, and they were acting like themselves again. This backstage segment was so stupid. It didn't make sense. We had Trish coming to the announcer's table. JR shakes her hand and King kisses her hand. Victoria's in the ring with Steven Richards. And then we have Val Venis versus Steven Richards. Chief Morley was fired, as stated by Jerry the King Lawler and Jim Ross, and Val Venis had officially come back. Val Venis then cuts a little bit of a promo. He offers Victoria an offer to be in his new adult film, Victoria's Dirty Little Secret. But what a fucking pun that was. That was just so lame. Steven Richards attacks him. King is showing off his computer to Trish. He then said he asked her if he would like to touch his mouse. The match is pretty fast-paced and crazy. Trish says it's time for a money shot, and King basically like orgasms in his chair. Venis hits the money shot for the win. Now, I will say, this match, when I say this match is fast-paced and crazy, like, they were literally trying to do every single big spot they could. I think, you know, Val Venis and Steven Richards, they're not going to get, you know, a Monday Night Raw match every single week, so they made the most of it. They were doing, like, shit. They were just flying off the wall. They were doing crazy shit. And another funny thing I'd like to mention, the money shot, you know, the finishing move of Val Venis. I will say, as a naive young child watching Raw in 2003, I had no fucking idea what the money shot meant. In all honesty, this goes right up with me, you know, my weird quirks as a kid. For those of you who don't know, I used to think when Billy Gunn's music played, I'm an ass man. I thought that said I'm a nice man. I used to think Scott Steiner, instead of kissing his biceps, was sniffing his armpits. Another one, I used to think back in 2004, and I feel like this should be okay because I was only like, 7 years old back then. When they were calling Trish Stratus a slut, I thought they were calling her a slug. I think it's good that a 7-year-old didn't know what the word slut was, so, you know, that's my 2 cents on that. And then this one here, money shot, I thought the money shot was, the way I thought of it was, it's what he uses to win matches, and when you win matches, you make more money. So it's the money shot because it's a splash that makes him money. So that was my thought on the money shot when I was younger. So when Trish said it was time for the money shot, I started laughing just basically because I was a stupid idiot. And I also laughed at King basically creaming his pants because Trish had said money shot. Then we had a backstage interview, Coach interviewing Kevin Nash. Coach says Nash is acting a little out of control. Now, okay, I'm gonna go into detail in this promo. I both loved it and hated it. I'm gonna tell you why in a second. Nash is like, well, my friend turned on me, and now he's like gonna get his ass kicked. Nash actually talked like a real person. That was the weird part about this interview. It was weird because Coach said you're acting out of control, and then Kevin Nash is just standing there, completely mellowed out, just talking as if nothing was wrong. So that was what I hated about this promo, because this guy's supposed to be pissed at Triple H, right? He screwed him out of the world title, and he's just kind of like la-di-la-di-la, nothing's wrong. Not like how like Cena would come out in those like after he got screwed out of a pay-per-view win or something, and he'd come out and act like nothing was wrong and make jokes. I mean, I could understand that Kevin Nash was upset about it all, but he seemed kind of just like a mellow person that really didn't care about anything. So it's what I hated. But the enjoyment I found in this promo was that Kevin Nash was talking like a real person. In wrestling, especially in this modern era, in the 80s it was cartoony, so everyone kind of had this over the top interview style. But I feel like you should have some sort of interview style where everyone can relate to it. You know what I mean? There are times, sure, you should have, bullet points. You should have what you want to say all ready to go, and you know what you want to say before you say it. But there has to be the sense of realism to where, they're not firing off a monologue that they just memorized 2 minutes beforehand. That's when your interviews suck. When you're using words no one would use. I remember they would do that. They do that shit to Ryback. They would make him say these words that just would not fit well with his character. And Kevin Nash is this giant ass kicker. It makes sense that he's kind of just shooting the breeze and he's just kind of talking and saying whatever comes to his mind. Now, again, I didn't get really any sort of passion from Kevin Nash. I really didn't believe that he was mad or anything. But then again, I also found enjoyment in the fact that he didn't, he wasn't acting like a machine, and he wasn't acting like this over-the-top character that was so unrelatable and so unrealistic and so, you couldn't take him seriously. So I found both enjoyment and hatred in this promo. So overall, it was okay, I guess. There was good and bad in it, at least for me. The subject matter, Kevin Nash is supposed to be out of control, but yet here he is just completely acting as if nothing has happened, as if he just walked into the building. And, but then again, talking like a normal person was also very enjoyable for me because I'm not used to that when I'm watching wrestling. Then we go to Terry. Terry is interviewing Christian. Terry asks Christian what's happening with Christian in his non-title match with Goldust tonight. Christian talks about his haircut and how the Alabama peeps give him the creeps. Goldust sneaks behind him and asks why he's such a dictator. That was a great line. Christian says Goldust and Booker aren't championship material. Booker T then sneaks up behind him, says the C on Christian's tights stands for chump, and says he's going to be the first-time IC champion next to his 5-time WCW titles. This was a fine interview. Both of these interviews were fine. Christian actually, he was kind of firing off one-liners left and right, so he was kind of like that. He wasn't over the top, but he did have, he seemed to have his shit together, had his words memorized and what he wanted to say. Again, this wasn't bad or anything, but it's kind of just the counter to what I was saying with Nash. Then we had a backstage segment with Austin and Bischoff. Austin says he likes Bischoff's match, but it's Austin presents Bad Blood. Bischoff says the production guy says Austin is offering free admission and free pay-per-views to any military guy. Bischoff says, why does he need to compete with him? Bischoff says he wants to work together with Austin. And then Austin's like, okay, so what you're saying is you want me one-on-one at Bad Blood? And then Bischoff's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. And Austin says tonight's Memorial Day, and he's going to go out and toast beer with military, and Lillian will sing America the Beautiful. Yada, yada, yada. This is basically to set up the little redneck triathlon between Austin and Bischoff at Bad Blood. Then we had Lillian Garcia singing America the Beautiful. Lillian gets probably halfway through, and, she's doing great and everything. And then La Resistance's music hits. Why? Why would they do this? I understand. Cheap heat, yada, 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 make the boys a little angry, I don't know. This was just stupid. I'm never a fan of this. Just because, one, it's Memorial Day, you have soldiers in the crowd, and I'm sure most of them didn't mind. Most of them knew it was part of the show, and maybe they sang America the Beautiful before Raw went on the air, so, no one was offended or anything. But even if that's the case, this is just not needed. Could they have at least, I still think it would have been just as effective, especially, it's not like some sort of top-tier main event talent. No offense to La Resistance, but it's just a mid-card tag team. Would it really have made a difference if, Austin and Lillian sang the song, Austin came out and drank some beers and, toasted with, the military crowd, and Austin was waving a flag, and then La Resistance invaded the ring and beat the shit out of Austin and, said, we're not taking this anymore? Would that have really made a difference? Like, would that, is that so, oh, that's too much for them? They really had to interrupt the song. I don't know. So they show up and they say they're tired of all the fat and ugly Americans. There's no beauty. They have the same tired, angry foreigner gimmick that I'm just so tired of. It's just this: someone invades from a foreign country, says America sucks, everyone boos, and then some sort of American wrestler has to stand up for their country. We've seen this 1,000 times, and unlike most things in wrestling where, the concept is so old but it works every time, like the traditional tag team match or something, this always sucks and it's always annoying. Maybe it's fun your first time around. I remember, in 2005 when I was a little kid, I was really into people trying to shut up Muhammad Hassan. But then when I look back at it with a new set of eyes, when I'm more mature, I realized how stupid Muhammad Hassan was, because it was just dumb in every single way. Like, why would you want to do a terrorist gimmick? There's just no need for that. But as a kid, I ate it up just because I really didn't know anything. I really didn't know anything about, terrorism and all that. I mean, I was aware of what 9/11 was, but I was only 4 years old when 9/11 took place. So, I wasn't really open to that kind of stuff. And I guess here as a little kid, you're trying to be respectful. You stand up and have your hand over your heart, and here's two guys from France just coming in, having no regard. So I guess that would get anyone fired up. But I think anyone over the age of, 10 can see through this and be like, okay, this is just stupid. Why would you do that? And, the cat's out of the bag by the time you're 10 years old or so. I mean, I learned wrestling was fake when I was 5 years old. So, I'd known for a really long time that this was all a show. Yet I still felt there was some sort of realism to it. So, it's a sense of maturity and everything. But I feel like anyone who's not a kid can see right through this and realize that it's completely unnecessary, and there's many other ways to get heat if you're so desperate to do the angry foreigner gimmick. So they put over the French. Austin's music hits. He shows up and throws them out of the ring. Austin flips him off. So again, they really didn't accomplish anything. It's not like they reigned supreme. They literally interrupted the song for no reason, only for Austin to come out and beat him up. So they looked like complete losers from beginning to end. So this did no favors for La Resistance. So they're trying to build up as their new tag team. I mean, they'd only been in the company for maybe a month or so, and they do win the titles with Bad Blood. So they had plans for them. So I don't know. I just found this to be completely stupid. Austin talks about drinking beer, and he invites Lillian back in the ring to finish America the Beautiful. Austin sings with Lillian, and Austin is just a terrible singer. And then they drink beers, and Austin pours beer all over Lillian. So what's more American than dumping beer all over a hot blonde's chest? It really doesn't get more American than that. So then we had a backstage segment. Flair's dancing around in front of a mirror in his robe. He goes into a dressing room, and then someone with a mask looks behind him. And then all of a sudden, they transition to the Raw set for Christian's entrance. But then before that, the word soon shows up. And I think this might have been a Gail Kim promo, and I think they might have edited those out of the WWE Network, which I'd find kind of funny. I mean, I know Gail Kim left WWE on bad terms back in 2009, 2010, and she's been in TNA ever since. But I really didn't think they would edit out her vignettes. I don't know if they do that with anyone else, but I do remember Gail Kim kind of having that sort of Matrix gimmick, and that's what it kind of looked like. So I don't know what's happening there. I don't know if they just decided to edit those out for some sort of reason. Then we had Christian versus Goldust. Christian basically has the advantage in the early going. Goldust gets the comeback with the punches and the butt tackles. That's what I used to call it. I used to call it a butt attack, the hip tackles. I just thought that was just a ridiculous move. I played a lot of... my first wrestling video game was Raw 2 for the Xbox, if you guys remember that game. I don't care what anyone says. That game was badass. I loved it so much. But one of my favorite wrestlers to play as was Goldust, because his dash attack, or his running attack, dash attack, I'm playing too much Super Smash Brothers now, if you guys can't tell. His dash attack was his hip tackle, and I just thought, why is he using his butt? So I always called it the butt tackle. Christian hits a reverse DDT for a near fall. Goldust gets a power slam for a quick pin, which I just found really odd. That was never Goldust's finish. He always did the curtain call or the last call or whatever it was called. Curtain call, yeah, duh. He almost went for the Golden Globes, which I always mark out for that. It's such a great move. But he got a power slam for a quick pin. It wasn't like, Christian was worn down or anything. It was literally just a quick pin. Christian immediately leaves the ring. Completely, I don't want to say not selling. He was, but it's not like he was laying in the ring for a bit and slowly got out. The moment the pin was over, he just dipped and ran with the IC title. So maybe it was Christian. Maybe the story there was Christian living to fight another day because he was still the IC champion and a non-title match is not worth his time. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. Then we had a 5-minute White Boy challenge. Rodney Mack facing Spike Dudley's bigger half-brother, Bubba Ray Dudley. Both attack each other with fists. Bubba escapes a headlock and a body scissor with some punches. He hits some suplexes on Mack. He hits the Bubba Bomb for a near fall. And halfway through the match, Chris Nowinski comes in and hits Bubba Ray Dudley with his little nose protector thing. Rodney Mack gets the win with a submission, and Devon comes out and tries to get the save. This was every Rodney Mack White Boy challenge is the same thing, just kind of boring, nothing to it, half a star, nothing fun, kind of boring. Then we had a backstage segment, La Resistance and Eric Bischoff. Eric Bischoff apologizes for Stone Cold Steve Austin's actions, and then he gives Sylvain Grenier a flag match with RVD, and he said if La Resistance wins, they get a title shot. Then we had another backstage segment. Well, I shouldn't say backstage segment. Chris Jericho was just getting his makeup done. And then they show a little promo of Austin interrogating Storm, saying, how it was Jericho that orchestrated Goldberg's attempted murder. And then we had a fan poll. 81% said, yes, Jericho will get speared. Well, I'm really glad we pulled the fans on that one. We couldn't have done something a little more fun. Really, do you think Jericho will get speared tonight? You could have asked him anything. Do you think Austin will drink beer tonight? Do you think Eric Bischoff will complain tonight? Do you think Shawn Michaels' pyro will go off tonight? Do you think Ric Flair will woo tonight? Do you think Triple H will spit water tonight? Really, there's a lot of, I really feel like this was a pointless question, but whatever. It's not me. I will say I did have a really good time looking back at 2003 WWE.com. The website has changed exponentially, if you can imagine. Then we had a backstage segment with Triple H and Flair. Triple H sneaks behind him in a completely weird way. I don't know what was going on with Triple H tonight. He was just completely weird in every stretch of the word. This whole thing with him being with brown-nosing Austin and, making these cartoony faces. He literally sneaks up from Ric Flair like he's tiptoeing, oh, hope he doesn't turn around, boo, like he was trying to scare him or something. I don't know what Triple H was doing tonight. Whatever it was, I really do not remember him behaving this way in any other Raw. So this was just weird. I don't know what was going on with him. He says Flair has changed, and Flair basically goes bananas on him and says he'll see him out in the ring. Then we have a flag match, Rob Van Dam versus Sylvain Grenier. RVD does his leg drop on the barricade. Dupree goes after Kane and trips him into the steps. Van Dam, like a complete dumbass, goes after Dupree and almost gives up the match. RVD drop kicks Sylvain on the floor. Dupree cheap shots RVD. There's a huge ref bump. He gets a senton from RVD. This ref got destroyed. Usually a ref bump is, him getting sandwiched into the corner or, maybe taking a punch or something. No, RVD did a senton onto this dude. So that sucked to be that ref. I think it was Mike Chioda, but, not 100% sure. RVD gets the flag, and La Resistance double teams him. Kane beats both of them up, then gets a flagpole to the throat, and they put the flag back. The ref suddenly starts coming back, which I find to be so preposterous, because sometimes a ref will get slapped in the face, and they're down for 20 years. This guy got a senton. He was down for 5 minutes. Bullshit. So much bullshit there. Sylvain gets the flag for the win, and thus a title shot. Then we have the highlight reel with special guest Goldberg. Chris Jericho opens up by saying his guest will be The Rock next week, which is exciting. Jericho says he tried to run over Goldberg because no one wants him in the WWE. Jericho says Goldberg and him were once friends in the WCW days, and he even tried to help him and get him under his wing. Jericho says the bigger of a star he became, the bigger his ego became, which is probably very much true. Jericho says it was crazy seeing Goldberg become a star even though Jericho is more talented than him. So Jericho left WCW and came to the WWE to become a star. He accomplished everything in his career except for one thing, and that's why he wants to challenge Goldberg to a match at Bad Blood. Goldberg came down to the ring. I don't know when the fight between these two. There's a real life fight between Jericho and Goldberg. I swear you can look it up. There's like a million YouTube videos of Jericho telling the story about the Goldberg fight. If you haven't heard of it yet, you're living under a rock. I don't know when that fight happened between these two. I really think it was around this time. But if so, this probably would have, made this feud a little more edgy. Goldberg says he accepts and calls Jericho an ass. Jericho says, "You want to call me an ass on my own show? Well, I'm just going to have to come in that ring and beat you out of it." And then he says, "Well, maybe I won't." And then what was so great about this moment right here, he says, "Then again, maybe I won't." And then Goldberg grabs him by the throat and throws him into the ring. Jericho is a very vocal man when he's in the ring. If you haven't noticed, if he does like a lariat, he'll like kind of scream when he does it. And, just whenever he falls or whenever he takes a bump or takes a punch to the face, he'll kind of make a little bit of a noise. I don't know if that's something he does for dramatic effect or if it's just kind of like a natural instinct or something, but it led to a fantastic moment when chicken shit heel Jericho trying to mess with the big badass Goldberg. Jericho says, "I'm going to have to come to that ring and beat you out of it. But then again, maybe I won't." Which is so hilarious because Goldberg grabs him by the throat and you just hear this, which was so awesome. I laughed so hard when I heard that. So he throws him into the ring. He's about to get the spear. Jericho then maces Goldberg in the face. Goldberg's trying to get the shit out of his eyes. Jericho measures him, runs the ropes, and then gets a spear on Goldberg. He then dips, runs away. Goldberg's left in the ring. And before the main event, Terry tries to get an interview with Chris Jericho, but Chris Jericho once again drives away in his ring gear for the second week in a row. Then we had Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels versus Triple H. Kevin Nash is once again just sitting backstage watching the main event. Kevin Nash is main eventing the pay-per-view in a Hell in a Cell match, and he was no longer in action, or he's just watching. I don't know what he's doing. Maybe the thought process is you don't want him to get injured on the way to this match. This is the first brand-exclusive pay-per-view. They wanted to go off with a bang. Maybe that was their thought process here. I'm not 100% sure. HBK starts it off with Triple H. HBK does a Flair strut. Triple H has the advantage. HBK backdrops into a super kick. Flair gets the tag, woos, and then punches Shawn Michaels, who sells it like he had just been shot. He hit Shawn Michaels with this punch. And let me tell you something. Ric Flair is an all-time great, maybe the best of all time. He didn't always throw the greatest punch in the world, if you know what I mean. He wasn't the greatest. His chops were awesome, and that's a reason he always did his chop. His punches aren't all that great, but he punched Shawn Michaels, and because Shawn Michaels is so awesome at taking bumps and just selling, Shawn Michaels acted like he had died. Shawn Michaels hit the mat so hard, and his head bounced and everything, and he was just holding his jaw in disbelief, not only because Ric Flair had turned on him, but because this punch was just so devastating. Shawn Michaels is by far the greatest wrestler of all time. Always, in my opinion, in terms of in-ring action. Shawn Michaels sold this like he had just been killed. He was holding his jaw in disbelief. Flair beats on HBK some more. Triple H hits the pedigree for the win. Triple H and Flair double team Michaels. Nash comes out to make the save. Triple H nails him right in the face with the chair. Orton is revealed to be the mystery man. Evolution is formed in this moment. Shawn Michaels and Kevin Nash are both laid out. Randy Orton, Ric Flair, and Triple H all stand tall. 3/4 of Evolution has formed. Batista will come back later this year. But as of right now, this is the official birth of Evolution. For a while, it was just kind of Triple H and Ric Flair in the same kind of like a little bit of a tag team alliance, but here we have Orton, a stable is forming, and here's where Evolution really comes into play. JR is pissed. He says this is reprehensible, and that's the end of Raw. So overall, it was an okay show. Not as good as last week. So overall, good show. No complaints here. I will see you guys next week for another installment of Raw is Jericho. Until then, I will see you all later.